You mentioned inverted pick and rolls, Jason. Max Strus has now been back for 2 games for the Cavs. He had 3 threes in the win over Milwaukee on Friday. He had just 2 points in the win against Utah on Monday. He's still working his way in. He's playing about 20 minutes per game. Kenny Atkinson said there's going to be a minutes restriction depending on how his body feels each game. So far through 2, about 20 minutes per each. What have you seen from Strus, and what have you noticed in terms of any nuances the Cavs have added to the offense that we didn't see before number 1 was back on the court?
Is it bad if I say the thing I've noticed is they don't need him?
No, they're 2-0 with them.
They're 23-4 without him.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of remarkable that the biggest free agent signing of the offseason last year, you kind of look at now and go,
maybe in the history of their team, right? I think you said that may have been the biggest, well, besides LeBron coming back.
Besides LeBron. Yeah, LeBron's its own category. Yeah. I mean, Larry Hughes and Max would probably be the 2 biggest. Larry back in the day was a huge get to play as a second star alongside LeBron, and now Max. But and last year he served a great purpose and a great role for this team. You look at him now and go, I don't know, like, they're 23-4 without him. How much they really need him? And he can shoot the ball. He can put it on the floor. He's another body. It'd be nice if he was about 4 inches taller. Then I think he'd be a lot more valuable. But it's funny that he just feels like a duplicate of what they've already got in so many ways to me. Now, depth is never a bad thing, and you never know when a guy's going to go down and somebody else is going to turn their ankle. But I mean, you're the basketball connoisseur. I don't know that he brings them anything that they didn't already have before.
So I agree to an extent. I disagree to another extent. The Cavs do have, maybe more than any team in basketball, a number of guys with similar skill sets at similar sizes.
Yeah.
You look at Strus, you look at Sam Merrill, Ty Jerome to an extent, little different player, but skill set wise, relatively in the same realm. Karis LeVert, not exactly the same, but he's a 6'5" wing that can play on ball, can play off ball. He's not the shooter those guys are. He's more of a creator, but he fits that mold. That's why the Cavs are a perfect candidate for a 2-for-1 trade at some point, just to kind of unclog the logjam they have at that position. Kenny was asked on Friday before the game, like, I know Isaac's – I'd throw Isaac into that equation too, by the way. But Isaac's out, Strus is in, so you're still at 10. But when you have 11, how do you play 11 guys? And he said, well, we're going to play 11. We're going to see if we can do that. Everyone's going to lose a few minutes as opposed to just cutting someone out of the rotation. We'll see how that happens and see how it works when they have 11 healthy, which they haven't yet. But that's a discussion for another day. I do think where I disagree, though, is Strus, unlike Merrill, can bring you some offensive creativity when he's coming off these screens. And we saw it at the end of last season when Darius was struggling, when Donovan was coming back. I think the Indiana game, Max had a triple-double. I go back, and as someone who grew up watching a ton of Nets, and those Kenny Atkinson Nets teams were some of the most fun, low expectation, deliver more than what you expect NBA teams in recent memory. They use Joe Harris, who's Max Strus's mentor, in ways that they haven't used Sam Merrill yet, because Merrill can't dribble off the catch in the same capacity those two can. I think Strus is better at attacking downhill off a pin down screen or off a floppy or off an elevator than even Joe Harris was capable of. Now, Harris was a little bigger.
Joe is an elite shooter. He's a way better shooter than Max was.
Yes, and that is the difference, and that's kind of why he generated a little more gravity when he was coming off those screens. However, the guys Joe is playing with are nowhere near the level of Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley. So I think the space is going to end up resulting in a similar amount of space, even if the process to get there is quite different. I think there are ways that Strus, and I think he fits better with the second unit than the first unit, if we're being completely honest, just because if you have a guy like Max, you want to run stuff for him.
Yeah.
I don't want to just put Max in the corner. If you're just going to put someone in the corner, you might as well play Sam Merrill, who's, I think, a better standstill, wide open shooter.
Shoot.
I think Max is best when he's coming off screens, being used. He's a really smart cutter, which plays into how the Cavs are playing this year. When Kenny Atkinson came over, he said this to me when we sat down in our media day interview. I was like, hey, when you looked at this roster, who was the first guy you thought of and said, that guy fits my system? And his answer was Max Strus. So I believe there are some layers that he hasn't been able to kind of unpeel yet in this offense, because he doesn't have a guy like Max who has the shooting respect of the other team that he has, with the ability then to create afterwards, some secondary actions And I want to show you this one play from the game against Milwaukee. This is an inverted pick and roll between Evan Mobley and Max Strus. I'm just going to keep playing this over and over and over again because I want you to watch it one more time and it's not on repeat. Inverted pick and roll, Max Strus, Evan Mobley. They haven't run that for Evan Mobley with Sam Merrill. I don't remember them running that with Ty Jerome. I don't think they've run that with Isaac Okoro. If they're going to run inverted pick and rolls and force defenses to switch, I wish I could pause this. I can't. I'm sorry. That's a freaking nightmare to defend. And I think at this point, and that can change over the next 50 games, Strus is one of the few guys in that 2-3 logjam that they trust to run some of that kind of action because of how smart of a basketball player he is. Max did that with Bam and some other guys in Miami. We haven't seen the inverted pick and roll with a Mobley as the ball handler too frequently in Cleveland thus far. But now with Max Strus back, I think that could be, and the options off that can become a much more prevalent part of this Cleveland offense.
Yeah. It goes back to Evan with the ball in his hands and the things that he can do. Max, I hear you and I agree. When you look at the way Karras is playing this year, I just don't know. I don't know what Max brings you that you don't already have in somebody else. And I don't think Merrill's a good comp because Sam's really just a catch and shoot guy. That's it. Go stand, whether it's coming off screens or catch and shoot. Sam when the ball's in Sam's hands, he's going straight up with it, more or less. You've pointed out in the past times where he can create for others, but that's the anomaly. It's
fun to point him out because it happens so infrequently.
Yeah.
What we're talking about.
Sam's a flamethrower. But Max with the ball in his hands, he can create for others, but they've got other guys who can do that. Max can shoot it, but they've got other guys who can do that. So it's fascinating to me to see how much this team has evolved in a year, to go from a guy of how desperately they needed somebody at that 3 spot just a year ago. Isaac didn't look like it was going to work out at all, and they really need more offensive punch from that spot. Max fit at the time. It was a great signing. And now this team is so good, he comes back and it's like, yeah, all right, well, stand in line. We'll call your number when we get to you. We'll in the order that you arrive, type thing. So it's a fascinating spot to be in. I'll be curious to see what they do at the deadline. They have some really big salaries that they could combine if they wanted to go out and really try and swing for a star. And we've talked about the cap at length. We don't need to do it again, but they've got options at this deadline. And if these trades are hard to pull off, though, when you're talking about like big money salary trades without draft picks attached, because normally the other teams that are sending out the big name stars,
they want draft picks.
They want draft picks. And we've talked, the only picks that the Cavs have are a 2030 swap and a 2031 first. So I'll be curious to see if they can pull this off. Kobe's done a great job at trade deadlines in the past at getting what they need. And we'll see if he can do it again. And maybe Max is part of that.
It's certainly a luxury. And it's the best problem to have in basketball is too many good guys, right? That is. Now, the question is through 30 games, and I think it's technically 29 games. I keep saying 30. Excuse my bad math. But through 30
No, it's
games,
30. They're 26-4.
Oh, so I was right. Yeah, it scratched the last 5 seconds from your memory. Men in Black. Beep. Gone. All right, so through 30 games, everyone's playing well. Will they continue to shoot this well and continue to play this well for the next 52 games and into the playoffs? And that's where I think a guy like Strus is more valuable than he probably is now. Will Isaac Okoro finish the year as the second best three-point marksman in the NBA at 49%? Maybe. It's certainly possible. I never thought he'd shoot 45%. He's shooting 49% on the season. It could happen. Will Ty Jerome and Caris LeVert continue to be top 10 three-point marksmen in terms of accuracy in the NBA as well? Maybe not. Sam Merrill hit 6 threes last night. He'd been in a shooting slump before. Are we going to see the red-hot flamethrower Sam Merrill moving forward, or are we going to see Sam Merrill who struggled to hit open shots? Dean Wade, I love the guy when he plays, but his ability to stay healthy is a legitimate concern, Jason. They have zero front court depth behind him, and I've been saying a big wing is their biggest need. And after Monday night's game against Utah and watching them get destroyed in the glass by Walker Kessler and not having Dean Wade available, maybe you turn two of these wings or two of these 2-3 combo guard wings, whatever you want to call them, into a more legitimate third big to be able to play instead of Tristan Thompson off the bench. I don't know. But my point is they have 11 guys they feel pretty confident in. Jalen Tyson's played early in the last 2 games, so maybe 12 if you want to include him. They can cash in a couple of those for a guy that's going to be a definite part of the playoff rotation, because despite what Kenny says, I can't imagine them playing more than 8, maybe 9 in a playoff series, because every coach in the history of the world has said depth is awesome and has used it in the regular season, has then cut it down come playoff time.
Yeah, and the deeper you go, the more you cut back your rotation. And that's a good point about Max. Max's NBA Finals experience. Him and Tristan Thompson are, I think, the only 2 on the roster that can say that. So you know that he's not afraid of the moment. You know, if some of these other guys struggle in the playoffs, Max will be there for you. So I'm not saying they should trade him. I'm just saying right now he's a replicate of they've already got a guy at every spot sort of that can do what he can do. But we'll see.